Admiral Catherine Kate Munro stood tall in the grand hall of the Galactic Hegemony. The room sparkled with strange lights and alien technology. Creatures from 100 worlds filled the massive space. Some floated in bubbles of gas. Others stood on many legs. Some didn't have legs at all. Kate kept her face calm, but her heart beat fast. After 20 years in space, she still felt small in places like this. The 17 worlds of humanity were nothing compared to the thousands that made up the hegemony. Behind her stood the rest of the human team. General Richard Grant, a man with gray hair and deep lines on his face, looked ahead with hard eyes. He had fought in 3 wars for the hegemony. Next to him, Ambassador Olivia Winters held a data tablet, her red hair pulled back tight. Her job was to speak nicely, but today she would stay quiet. This was Kate's show. Last in line was Alan Harper, their science officer. His fingers tapped against his leg as he looked at all the alien tech with hungry eyes. Admiral Munro of Earth, a voice boomed across the hall, stepped forward to address Emperor Zalthazar, ruler of the 7 spiral arms, master of 1,000,000 worlds, eternal light of the galactic hegemony. Kate walked ahead alone. The floor was made of some black stone that seemed to swallow light. Her boots made no sound as she moved. Then the air in front of her sparkled and shifted. A giant shape formed from light, growing until it filled half the room. Emperor Zalthazar, ruler of the largest empire in known space, looked down at her. He was not physically in the room. His real body sat on a throne world somewhere in the core systems. But his hologram was perfect in every detail. His skin shone with blue-green scales that caught the light. 6 yellow eyes blinked at different times on his wide face. 4 arms crossed over his chest, each ending in long fingers with sharp black claws. "Speak, human," the Emperor said. His voice was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. Kate bowed just enough to be polite, but not enough to look weak. "Emperor Zalthazar, I come before you with a formal request from the United Governments of Earth and its colonies. We ask that humanity be granted full independence from the galactic hegemony, with all rights and privileges of a sovereign power." A strange silence fell over the room. Then it broke with a sound Kate had not expected. Laughter. The Emperor's massive head tilted back. His mouth opened to show rows of pointed teeth as he laughed. The sound bounced off the walls and hit Kate like a physical force. "Independence?" the Emperor finally said. "You humans have been under our protection for 300 years. You control 17 worlds on the edge of nowhere. Your ships still use outdated jump drives. Your weapons are toys compared to ours." He leaned forward, his giant face coming closer to Kate. "Tell me, Admiral, why should I grant such a request?" Kate had practiced this speech for weeks. "Your Majesty, humanity has proven itself loyal to the hegemony. We have fought in your wars, traded fairly with your merchants, and shared our unique cultural achievements. We believe we have earned the right to stand as equals, not subjects." More laughter filled the room, but this time it came from the aliens surrounding the Emperor's hologram. Ministers and generals and royal family members all joined in the mockery. The Emperor raised one massive hand and pointed a clawed finger directly at Kate. "The human thinks her kind are equals," he boomed. His eyes narrowed with cruel humor. "Perhaps next the Vraxian slug will demand a seat on my council." The laughter grew louder. Kate felt heat rise in her chest, but she kept her face still. Getting angry would only make things worse. What the Emperor and his court didn't understand was who they were laughing at. Kate Munro wasn't just any admiral. On human worlds, some people called her by another name, the Baba Yaga. The name came from an old Earth story about a witch who lived in a house with chicken legs. The witch punished those who deserved it and helped those who showed respect. Kate had earned that nickname during the Proxima Centauri rebellion 5 years ago. When alien rebels had taken human hostages, the hegemony had ordered her to bombard the whole colony. Instead, Kate had led a small team inside. They saved every hostage and stopped the rebellion without destroying the colony. The hegemony took credit for the victory but never mentioned how it was won. "Your Majesty," Kate tried again. "Humanity asks only for the chance to—" "Enough," The Emperor cut her off. Your request is denied. Humans will remain under hegemony control, as they have been and as they should be. He waved a dismissive hand. You may continue to govern your little worlds as you have, but do not waste my time with talk of independence. Know your place, Admiral. Kate's hand tightened into a fist at her side. This was the answer she had expected but hoping to avoid. Is that your final decision, Your Majesty? She asked quietly. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. It is. And be grateful I find your presumption amusing rather than insulting, or your punishment would be severe. Kate bowed again, slightly deeper this time. Thank you for your time, Emperor Zalthazar. As she turned to walk back to her team, the Emperor spoke again. Admiral Monroe. She stopped and looked back. I am curious. This Baba Yaga, I have heard some of my officers use this name for you. What does it mean? Kate met his six-eyed gaze without flinching. It's an old Earth story, Your Majesty, about someone you shouldn't cross. The Emperor laughed again, but softer this time. How quaint. You humans and your little stories. Kate rejoined her team, and they walked from the Great Hall together. None of them spoke until they were back on their ship, the EDF Valiant, safely, away from alien ears. In the privacy of the ship's command room, General Grant slammed his fist on the table. Just as we expected. Arrogant scaleface. He didn't even consider it, Ambassador Winters said, shaking her head. Not for 1 second. Kate sat down heavily in her chair. No, he didn't, which means we move to Plan B. The three others fell, silent, and looked at her. Are you sure? Alan Harper asked. Once we start down this path, we've been preparing for this outcome for 5 years, Kate said. The Emperor has made his choice. Now we make ours. She tapped a command into her wrist device. A secure channel opened to Earth. This is Admiral Monroe. The petition was denied. Activate Project Prometheus. I repeat, activate Project Prometheus. She closed the channel and looked at her team. The Emperor pointed and laughed today. In 3 weeks he won't be laughing anymore. Deep under the Rocky Mountains on Earth, Dr. Gregory Wells couldn't sleep. For 5 years he had worked on Project Prometheus. Now it was time to use it. Greg walked down the long hallway of the underground base. His footsteps echoed against the metal walls. 20 levels below the surface, the base was safe from most attacks. Even the hegemony's planet-killer weapons would have trouble reaching this deep. He pressed his hand to a scanner outside a heavy door. The light turned green, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, a large room hummed with power. Screens covered the walls, showing numbers and diagrams that only a few people on Earth could understand. In the center stood a round platform. On it sat a simple metal ball about the size of a basketball. You're early, a voice said. Greg turned to see Linda Martinez at her workstation. Her dark hair was pulled back, and she had circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Couldn't stay away, Greg admitted. Not with the signal from Admiral Monroe coming in last night. Linda nodded. Same here. Paul's been here since 3 a.m. As if on cue, Commander Paul Murphy walked in from a side door. He carried 3 cups of coffee and handed them out. Any word from the Admiral? Greg asked, taking a sip. Paul shook his head. The Valiant is on its way back to Earth. They'll be here in 2 days. And the Emperor? Linda asked. Still laughing, I bet, Paul said with a grim smile. But not for long. Greg walked over to the platform and looked down at the metal sphere. It seemed so small and simple, hard to believe it could change everything. Are we sure about this? He asked quietly. Linda joined him by the platform. Having second thoughts? No, Greg said quickly. It's just, once we use this, there's no going back. The hegemony will know what we can do. They've given us no choice, Paul said. 300 years of being their slaves, fighting their wars, mining their resources, following their rules. And all we asked for was to be treated as equals, Linda added. Greg sighed. I know. I just hope this works the way we think it will. The sphere on the platform was the key, to Project Prometheus. It didn't look like much, but inside was technology that even the hegemony didn't have. Quantum entanglement on a scale never seen before. In simple terms, it could move things from one place to another instantly, no matter how far. No need for ships or jump gates, just here 1 second, there the next. The team had tested it on small objects first, then larger ones, then an old satellite. Each test worked perfectly. The object vanished from one place and appeared in another, exactly as planned. But they had never tested it on anything as large as a moon or a planet. The math said it would work. The simulations said it would work. But until they tried it for real, they couldn't be sure. Let's run the final checks, Greg said. I want everything perfect when the Admiral gets here. For the next 2 days, the team worked almost non-stop. They checked every system, ran every test, prepared for every possible problem. Other scientists and engineers joined them, each one responsible for a different part of the project. On the morning of the 3rd day, a secure message came in. The Valiant had entered Earth's orbit. Admiral Monroe was on her way down. An hour later, Kate Monroe walked into the lab. She still wore her formal uniform from the meeting with the Emperor, though it looked a bit wrinkled now. Behind her came General Grant, Ambassador Winters, and Alan Harper. Dr. Wells, Kate said, shaking Greg's hand. Is it ready? Greg nodded. Yes, Admiral. We can begin deployment whenever you give the word. Kate looked at the sphere on the platform. It's smaller than I expected. Size doesn't matter for quantum technology, Greg explained. What matters is the entanglement matrix inside. We've built 17 of these units, as requested. And my team is ready to place them, Paul said, stepping forward. We've identified the target worlds and prepared the stealth ships. Kate nodded. Good, show me the targets. Linda tapped on her tablet, and a large map appeared on the main screen. It showed the galactic hegemony with certain stars marked in red. These are the 17 worlds we've selected, Linda explained. Major population centers, key military bases, and critical resource planets, plus Hegemony Prime itself, of course. And you're sure these devices won't be detected? General Grant asked. The quantum signature is masked, Greg said. To their sensors, they'll just look like normal background radiation. Even if they find one, they won't know what it does until we activate it. Kate studied the map carefully. How long will deployment take? 2 weeks, Paul answered. We'll use the fastest stealth ships we have. The teams know what to do. And once they're in place, Ambassador Winters asked. Greg pointed to a small device on his desk. This is the control unit. It can trigger any or all of the devices from anywhere in the galaxy. The quantum link can't be blocked or jammed. Kate picked up the control unit. It was small enough to fit in her palm. A simple black box with a small screen and a few buttons. So much power in such a small package, she said quietly. That's the beauty of quantum technology, Greg said. It doesn't need to be big to be powerful. Kate put the control unit down. Tell me again what happens when we activate it. Greg brought up a simulation on the screen. The quantum field will surround the target, planet, moon, whatever we choose. It creates a bubble of altered space-time. Then, in an instant, it shifts that bubble to a new location that we pre-program. The target doesn't explode or get destroyed, Linda added. It simply moves to wherever we want it to go. And the people on these worlds? Ambassador Winters asked. They'll be fine, Greg assured her. They'll feel a moment of disorientation, maybe some nausea, but no lasting effects. They won't even know what happened until they look up and see different stars in the sky. Kate nodded slowly. So we can move an entire planet full of people without harming them, a show of force without a single casualty. That's the idea, Greg said. We don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to show the hegemony that we're not as helpless as they think. And if they try to attack Earth? General Grant asked. Greg's face grew serious. Then we can move Earth itself if we have to. Or we can move their attack fleet to the other side of the galaxy. The technology works on anything with mass. A heavy silence fell over the room. The power they held was enormous. They could reshape the galaxy if they wanted to. We won't use it unless we have to, Kate said firmly. This is a defensive measure, not a weapon of conquest. Of course, Admiral, Greg agreed. That's why we built it. Kate turned to Paul. Commander Murphy, begin deployment immediately. I want those devices in place as soon as possible. Paul saluted. Yes, Admiral. The teams are ready to go. Kate looked at the others. In 3 weeks, I'll take the Valiant back to Hegemony Prime. Alone. Alone? General Grant frowned. That's too dangerous. It has to be this way, Kate said. One ship, making a peaceful approach. No signs of aggression. Just me, going back to talk to the Emperor one more time. And if he refuses to talk? Alan Harper asked. Kate's eyes hardened. Then I'll show him why they call me the Baba Yaga. 2 weeks passed quickly. The deployment teams worked in secret, placing the quantum devices on the target worlds. They used Earth's newest stealth technology to avoid detection. Not even the Hegemony's advanced sensors could spot them. On the 15th day, Paul reported that all 17 devices were in place and working perfectly. The quantum link was stable. The control unit was tested and ready. Kate spent those 2 weeks preparing for her return to Hegemony Prime. She studied the Emperor's psychology, looking for any weakness she could use. She practiced what she would say, how she would stand, even how she would breathe. On the morning of the 3rd week, Kate stood in the launch bay of Earth's orbital station. The Valiant waited, its engines humming softly. Her crew was small, just enough to fly the ship and operate essential systems. Greg, Linda, and Paul had come up to see her off. They stood near the boarding ramp, looking nervous but determined. The control unit is locked to your biometrics, Greg said, handing her the small black box. No one else can use it. Kate took it and slipped it into a pocket inside her uniform. Let's hope I don't need to. Good luck, Admiral, Linda said. We'll be monitoring from here, Kate nodded. If I don't return in 10 days, activate the contingency plan. Earth comes first. They saluted her as she walked up the ramp. The Valiant's doors closed behind her with a soft thud. Inside the ship, Kate made her way to the bridge. Her small crew stood at attention as she entered. All systems ready, Admiral, the pilot reported. Course to Hegemony Prime is set. Kate took her seat in the command chair. Take us out, Lieutenant, nice and easy. We're not in a hurry. As the Valiant pulled away from Earth, Kate looked out at her home planet. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. So small compared to the vast empire of the Hegemony. But not helpless. Not anymore. The Emperor pointed and laughed. She said quietly to herself, let's see if he's still laughing when I return. The journey to Hegemony Prime took 6 days. The Valiant traveled alone through the darkness of space. Kate spent most of that time in her quarters, going over the plan again and again. On the bridge, her small crew worked quietly. They knew what was at stake. Each person had been chosen carefully, not just for their skills, but for their courage. Frank Russell handled weapons and tactical systems. Diane Peterson managed communications. Henry Morris controlled navigation. Each was the best at what they did. Approaching Hegemony Prime, Admiral, Henry called out on the 6th day. We'll exit jump space in 5 minutes. Kate nodded and straightened her uniform. Alert me when we're in normal space. She went to her quarters one last time. From a small drawer, she took out a faded photo. It showed a young woman standing next to an older man in a mining uniform. Her father had died working in the Hegemony's helium mines, on Neptune. That was 20 years ago when Kate was just a teenager. The memory still burned. She put the photo away and touched the small control unit in her pocket. Then she walked back to the bridge. Jump complete, Henry announced as she entered. We're in the Hegemony Prime system. Kate took her seat. Status. Report. 17 Hegemony warships detected, Frank said from the tactical station. They're forming a defensive ring around the planet. They've spotted us, Diane added. We're being hailed. Kate took a deep breath. On screen, the main view screen lit up, showing the stern face of a Hegemony fleet commander. His scales were dark red, marking him as a high-ranking officer. Human vessel, he said, not bothering with polite greetings. You have entered restricted space without permission. State your purpose, or be destroyed. Kate kept her voice calm and steady. This is Admiral Catherine Munro of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Valiant. I request an audience with Emperor Zalthazar on an urgent diplomatic matter. The commander's eyes narrowed. You were here 3 weeks ago. Your request for independence was denied. What more is there to discuss? That is between me and the Emperor, Kate replied. Please inform His Majesty that I bring an important message from Earth. The commander stared at her for a long moment, then the screen went dark. They've cut the transmission, Diane reported. Now we wait, Kate said. They didn't have to wait long. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up again. This time, it showed a different alien, one with pale blue scales and ornate clothing. Kate recognized him as the Imperial Chamberlain, the Emperor's chief assistant, Admiral Munro, the Chamberlain said. His Supreme Majesty Emperor Zalthazar is curious about your return. He will grant you 5 minutes of his time. Your ship may approach the palace orbital station. You will come. Alone and unarmed, Kate nodded. Understood. Thank you, Chamberlain. The screen went dark again. They're sending coordinates for docking, Henry said. Admiral, this could be a trap, Frank warned. Going alone is too dangerous. It's the only way they'll let me see the Emperor, Kate said. Don't worry, I have what I need. She patted her pocket where the control unit rested. The Valiant moved slowly toward the massive orbital station that hung above Hegemony Prime. It was a huge structure, bigger than Earth's moon, covered in gleaming metal and flashing lights. The Emperor's palace took up a large section of it. Docking complete, Henry announced when they reached the station. Kate stood up. While I'm gone, keep the engines ready. If I don't return in 2 hours, or if they try to capture the ship, jump away immediately. Return to Earth and tell them what happened. Her crew nodded solemnly. Kate walked to the airlock alone. She wore her formal uniform with all her medals and honors. The control unit was hidden in an inside pocket, undetectable to standard security scans. When the airlock opened, 4 large Hegemony guards waited for her. They were members of the Emperor's personal guard, each over 7 feet tall with heavy armor and powerful weapons. This way, one of them grunted. They led her through the station's gleaming corridors. Aliens of many species stopped to stare as she passed. Humans rarely came to Hegemony Prime and never alone. Finally, they reached a large door decorated with scenes of Hegemony conquests. The door slid open, and Kate was led into a massive chamber. Unlike their first meeting, Emperor Zalthazar was physically present this time. He sat on a floating throne at the far end of the room. He was even larger in person than his hologram had been, nearly 15 feet tall when standing, with scales that shimmered in the room's bright light. Around him stood various ministers, generals, and royal family members. Kate recognized many from her previous visit. They watched her with curiosity and contempt. Kate walked forward until she stood in the center of the room. She bowed slightly, just as before, enough to be polite, but not enough to look weak. Admiral. Munro, the Emperor's voice boomed across the chamber. You have returned despite my clear answer to your petition. I find your persistence both annoying and amusing. Thank you for seeing me, Your Majesty, Kate said. I have come to offer you one last chance to recognize Earth's independence peacefully. Laughter filled the room again, just as it had 3 weeks ago. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his 6 eyes gleaming with cruel humor. One last chance, he repeated. You dare to threaten me? Here, in my own palace? He pointed a long, clawed finger directly at Kate. I could have your world burned to ash with a single command. I could have your people enslaved and scattered across 1,000 labor camps. I could erase all memory of Earth from the galaxy's history. Kate didn't flinch as the Emperor's finger stopped inches from her face. Perhaps, she said calmly. But before you make that decision, I should inform you that we've placed quantum entanglement devices on 17 key worlds throughout your empire, including Hegemony Prime. The laughter stopped abruptly. A heavy silence fell over the room. What Nonsense is this? The Emperor asked, but Kate heard the first hint of uncertainty in his voice. She reached slowly into her pocket and took out the control unit. It was small in her hand, but everyone in the room stared at it as if it were a deadly weapon. This device controls 17 quantum displacement units, Kate explained. Each one is capable of moving an entire planet to a location of our choosing, instantly. One of the Emperor's generals stepped forward. Impossible. Such technology does not exist. Even our scientists haven't mastered quantum displacement on that scale. You assumed we were primitive, Kate said. That was your mistake. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? Kate asked. She tapped a command into the control unit. A holographic display appeared above it, showing the locations of all 17 devices. Each one glowed with a steady blue light, indicating it was active and ready. These are the targets, Kate said. Military bases, key industrial worlds, population centers, and of course, Hegemony Prime itself. She looked directly at the Emperor. We don't want to use them. All we ask is recognition of our independence and to be treated as equals in the galaxy. For a long moment, the Emperor stared at her. Then his face twisted with rage. Seize her! He roared. The guards moved forward, but Kate held up the control unit. I wouldn't, she warned. This device is linked to my vital signs. If I die or lose consciousness, it will activate automatically. 17 worlds will be scattered across the galaxy. The guards hesitated, looking to the Emperor for instructions. The Emperor's scales had darkened with anger. You expect me to believe that humans have developed technology that even the hegemony does not possess? That your primitive species could threaten the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known? I don't expect you to believe it, Kate said. I expect you to test it. She tapped another command into the control unit. I've just activated targeting on the small moon orbiting this planet, the one with the mining colony. It's uninhabited tonight because of the radiation storm. No one will be hurt. The Emperor's eyes widened. Stop this madness at once. Kate's finger hovered over the final button. Recognize Earth's independence, or I will demonstrate what we can do. This is an act of war, one of the ministers shouted. No, Kate replied. This is an act of self-determination. We've been under hegemony control for 300 years. We've mined your resources, fought your wars, followed your laws. And when we asked to stand as equals, you pointed and laughed. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the various aliens. We don't want war, we don't want to hurt anyone, we just want to be free. The Emperor stood up from his throne, towering over Kate. His forearms were tense, claws extended. Destroy her ship, he said to one of his generals. Now! The general tapped a command into his wrist device. Kate pressed the button on her control. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the room lit up with urgent messages. The small moon orbiting Hegemony Prime seemed to shimmer, like air above hot pavement. Then, in an instant, it was gone. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Ministers shouted, guards raised weapons. The Emperor stood frozen, staring at the screens that showed empty space where the moon had been. The moon has been moved 5 light years away, Kate said, her voice cutting through the noise. To an empty region of space. As I said, it was uninhabited. No one was hurt. She looked up at the Emperor. The other 16 devices can do the same to their target worlds. I can activate them all with a single command. 2 months after the treaty signing, Kate stood in a grand hall on Earth. Unlike the cold, imposing chamber of the Hegemony Emperor, this room was warm and filled with light. Large windows showed the blue sky and the rebuilt skyline of New Washington, Earth's capital city. The hall was packed with people, government officials, military officers, scientists, and regular citizens chosen by lottery to attend this historic event. Today was the official celebration of Earth's independence. Kate wore her formal uniform with a new addition, a golden pin in the shape of Earth, marking her new role as Supreme Commander of the Human Federation Defense Force. Next to her stood the members of Project Prometheus, Dr. Gregory Wells, Linda Martinez, and Commander Paul Murphy. They had all received special honors for their work. Hard to believe it's real, Greg said quietly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. 300 years of hegemony rule ended because of what we built. Kate nodded. The quantum devices have all been removed, as promised. Did your team finish analyzing the hegemony's reaction? Yes, Linda replied. They've been scanning every inch of the 17 worlds we targeted, looking for any trace of our technology. And? Kate raised an eyebrow. Linda smiled. They won't find anything useful. The devices were designed to leave no trace once removed. All they'll find is residual quantum energy that could have dozens of explanations. Good, Kate said. The longer they stay afraid of us, the safer we are. A door at the far end of the hall opened. The president of the Human Federation, Eleanor Wright, entered to thunderous applause. She was a tall woman with gray hair and a face that showed both strength and kindness. Kate had worked closely with her during the independence negotiations. President Wright walked to the podium and raised her hands for silence. My fellow humans, she began, her voice strong and clear. Today we celebrate our first 2 months as a free and independent federation. For 3 centuries we lived under hegemony rule. They saw us as lesser beings unworthy of self-determination. But today, we stand as equals in the galaxy. More applause filled the hall. Kate noticed many people with tears in their eyes. Freedom meant different things to different people, but everyone understood its value. This achievement was not won through destructive war, the president continued. It was won through courage, intelligence, and the refusal to accept anything less than full respect. And for that, we owe special thanks to Admiral Catherine Monroe and her team. She gestured to Kate and the others. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Kate nodded in acknowledgement but didn't smile. She never felt comfortable being celebrated as a hero. Admiral Monroe, the president said, please join me. Kate walked to the podium. President Wright handed her a small box. For extraordinary service to humanity, the president said, I present you with the Federation Star, our highest honor. Kate accepted the box with a small bow. Thank you, Madam President. But the real honor belongs to every human who worked for this day, including those who didn't live to see it. She thought of her father again as she returned to her place. He would have been proud, but he would have also warned her to stay vigilant. Freedom was precious and fragile. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the presidential gardens. Kate mingled with the guests, accepting congratulations but keeping conversations brief. She was never comfortable at these social events. Admiral Monroe, a voice called. Kate turned to see Ambassador Olivia Winters approaching with a tall, humanoid alien. The alien had blue-gray skin and large, thoughtful eyes. Ambassador, Kate greeted her. Good to see you. This is Ambassador Toril from the Arcadian Republic, Olivia said, gesturing to the alien. He arrived this morning to establish diplomatic relations. Kate extended her hand in the human greeting style. Toril took it carefully in his 3-fingered grip. Admiral Monroe, he said in slightly accented English. Your reputation extends far beyond Earth. The Arcadians are impressed by how you achieved independence without bloodshed. Thank you, Ambassador, Kate replied. We look forward to peaceful relations with your people. The Arcadians have been under hegemony influence for many years, Olivia explained. They're interested in becoming our first official ally. Kate understood the significance immediately. The hegemony had kept its subject species isolated from each other, preventing them from forming alliances. If Earth and Arcadia became allies, others might follow. That would be most welcome, Kate said to Toril. Together we can build a more balanced galaxy. As they talked, Kate noticed a commotion near the entrance to the gardens. Security officers were gathering, and there seemed to be an urgent discussion happening. Excuse me, she said to the ambassadors, then walked over to see what was happening. General, Richard Grant met her halfway. His face was grim. What is it? Kate asked quietly. A hegemony ship just entered Earth orbit. Richard replied. A royal vessel. They're requesting permission to land. Kate frowned. Did they say why they're here? They say the Emperor himself is on board. He wants to speak with you personally. Kate's hand instinctively went to her pocket, but the quantum control unit wasn't there anymore. The devices had been removed weeks ago, as promised in the treaty. Let them land, she decided after a moment. Have a security team meet them at the spaceport. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Are you sure that's wise? Richard asked. The Emperor coming here himself. It's unprecedented. Which is why we need to see what he wants, Kate replied. Alert? Dr. Wells and his team, just in case. Kate slipped away from the reception without drawing attention. In her private shuttle, she changed from her formal uniform into a more practical one, better suited for action if needed. The spaceport was on high alert when she arrived. A sleek hegemony vessel had landed on the main pad, its silver hull gleaming in the afternoon sun. It was smaller than Kate had expected, not a warship but a royal yacht. A squad of human security officers surrounded the ship, weapons ready, but not aimed directly at it. Kate joined them, standing front and center. Koitir, ship's main hatch opened slowly. 2 hegemony royal guards emerged first, their scaled bodies covered in ceremonial armor. They took positions on either side of the hatch, then stood at attention. Then Emperor Zalthazar himself appeared. Kate was surprised again. Instead of his usual ornate robes and regalia, he wore a simple traveling outfit, and he was alone, except for the 2 guards. The Emperor stepped onto Earth's soil. He looked around with his 6 eyes, taking in the human world. Then his gaze settled on Kate. Admiral Monroe, he said, his voice quieter than she remembered. Thank you for allowing me to land. Kate gave the same slight bow as always, respectful but not submissive. Your Majesty, this is unexpected. I'm sure it is. The Emperor walked toward her. Kate's security team tensed, but she gestured for them to stay calm. I have come to see for myself, the Emperor continued. The world that produced the Baba Yaga. The people who developed technology even my scientists still can't explain. Kate said nothing, waiting for him to get to the point. The Emperor stopped a few paces from her. Up close, Kate could see that his scales had lost some of their luster. He looked tired, almost old. Walk with me, Admiral, he said unexpectedly. I wish to speak with you alone. Kate considered for a moment, then nodded. General Grant. Have your team follow at a distance. We'll stay within the spaceport grounds. Richard didn't look happy about it, but he agreed. Kate and the Emperor began walking along a path that circled the landing pads. Your world is beautiful, the Emperor said after a moment of silence. More so than I expected. Thank you, Kate replied, but I doubt you came all this way to admire our scenery. The Emperor made a sound that might have been a laugh, though. It was gentler than the mocking laughter she had heard before. Direct as always. He paused, looking up at Earth's blue sky. I came because things are changing in the hegemony. Your actions have had consequences. Kate tensed slightly. What kind of consequences? 3 other species have now demanded independence, the Emperor said. The Arcadians, who I see, have already sent an ambassador here. The Tellarites from the mining worlds, and the Volturi from the central systems. Kate kept her face neutral, though inside she felt a surge of satisfaction. And more will follow, the Emperor continued. They all speak of Earth now, of how one small, seemingly weak species stood up to the hegemony and won. They walked in silence for a moment before the Emperor spoke again. My council is divided. Some want to crush these rebellions immediately, to make an example. Others argue that we should negotiate as we did with you. He looked at Kate. I came to ask you directly. Did you share your quantum technology with these other species? Kate met his gaze. No. That technology remains with Earth alone. Then how are they threatening us with it? The Emperor demanded, a hint of his old anger returning. The Arcadian ambassador told my viceroy that they could move worlds if we did not recognize their sovereignty. Now Kate did smile, just slightly. Perhaps they're bluffing, just as you thought we were. The Emperor stared at her, then made that strange laughing sound again. Perhaps they are. Or perhaps you've inspired them to stand up regardless of whether they have the means to win. Kate didn't sleep much that night. The guest quarters were comfortable enough, a large room with strange alien furniture designed for many different body types. But she knew better than to let her guard down in the heart of the Emperor's palace. She kept the control unit with her at all times. Twice during the night she detected faint energy scans sweeping through her room. The hegemony scientists were probably trying to figure out how the device worked. They wouldn't learn much. The quantum technology inside was unlike anything they had seen before. Morning came, marked only by a change in the lighting. In space, there was no true day or night. Kate washed and put on her formal uniform again. She had just finished when there was a knock at her door. The Imperial Chamberlain stood outside, flanked by 4 guards. "Admiral Monroe," he said with a stiff bow. "The treaty is ready for review. Please follow me." Kate followed him through the palace's twisting corridors. They passed aliens of many species, all of whom stopped to stare at the human who had challenged the Emperor and won. They entered a large meeting room. A long table of polished black stone dominated the center. Around it sat several high-ranking hegemony officials, ministers, generals, and legal experts. At the head of the table was an empty chair, presumably for the Emperor. "Please sit," the Chamberlain said, gesturing to a chair on one side of the table. Kate sat down. A moment later, a human-sized data tablet was placed in front of her. On its screen was the draft treaty, written in both the hegemony's standard language and English. "You may review the terms," one of the ministers said. "The Emperor will join us shortly for the formal signing." Kate read through the treaty carefully. It was surprisingly straightforward. Earth and all human colonies would be recognized as the Human Federation, independent from hegemony control. Non-aggression pacts would prevent either side from attacking the other. Trade agreements would allow commerce to continue. There were details about borders, space lanes, and diplomatic relations, but the core of the treaty was simple. Humans would be free. As Kate read, she noticed the officials watching her closely. They seemed tense, almost nervous. That made sense. Yesterday they had laughed at her. Today they feared her. "The terms seem acceptable," Kate said when she finished reading. "I have authority to sign on behalf of Earth's united governments." The officials exchanged glances. One of them, a general, with dark green scales, leaned forward.